I'm sitting in my living room this evening, looking at the foreclosure notice that arrived in today's mail, and I keep thinking about a conversation I had with my wife 16 years ago. We were standing in the kitchen of a house we couldn't afford, signing papers for a mortgage we didn't understand, convinced we were making the smartest investment of our lives. Instead, we were walking into a financial disaster that would consume the next decade and a half of our lives and leave us facing homelessness at 76 and 74 years old. I'm Robert, and I'm 76 years old. And in 2008, at the absolute peak of the housing bubble, my wife Sandra and I bought our dream house for $640,000. Today, 16 years later, that house is worth maybe $300,000. We owe more on it than we'll ever be able to pay, and we have 60 days to pack up our life before the bank takes the keys. Let me tell you how the worst financial decision of our lives looked like the best opportunity we'd ever seen. Sandra and I had been married for 34 years in 2008, and we'd been living in the same modest 3-bedroom ranch since 1981. We'd bought it for $85,000, paid it off in 2003, and were comfortable in a house that fit our needs and our budget perfectly. But by 2008, our neighborhood was changing rapidly. Young professionals were buying up older homes, tearing them down, and building enormous new houses that sold for prices we could barely comprehend. Our little paid-off ranch looked shabby next to the McMansion sprouting up on every street. More importantly, our home's value had skyrocketed along with everything else in the area. The house we'd bought for $85,000 was suddenly worth $420,000 on paper. We were sitting on over $300,000 in equity that wasn't doing anything but making us feel rich when we checked real estate websites. That's when our neighbor Jim suggested we talk to his real estate agent about optimizing our housing situation. Jim and his wife had just bought a beautiful new house in an upscale development 20 minutes away, using the equity from their old house as a down payment. They were paying more monthly than they had before, but they were living in luxury and building wealth in a better neighborhood with better schools and better resale potential. The real estate agent, a woman named Karen who drove a Mercedes and wore expensive jewelry, met with us in February 2008. She explained that we were in the perfect position to upgrade our lifestyle and maximize our investment potential by selling our paid-off house and buying something more substantial in an appreciating market. Karen showed us comparable sales in our neighborhood. Houses similar to ours, selling for well over $400,000. She showed us listings in Willowbrook Estates, a new development where houses started in the mid-500s, but were certain to appreciate because of the location, amenities, and quality of construction. The numbers Karen presented were seductive. We could sell our house for around $420,000, pay off some minor debts, and have nearly $400,000 to put toward a new house. With that kind of down payment, we could afford a house in the $600,000 range and still have reasonable monthly payments. Sandra was hesitant about taking on a mortgage again after 5 years of enjoying the freedom of owning our house outright. But I was intrigued by Karen's arguments about building wealth through real estate appreciation and upgrading to a house that better reflected our success and status. Karen arranged for us to tour several houses in Willowbrook Estates in March 2008. The development was impressive: large lots, mature landscaping, houses with granite countertops and hardwood floors, and 2-car garages and master bedroom suites that were bigger than some entire apartments. The house that captured our imagination was a 4-bedroom colonial with a 2-story foyer, a gourmet kitchen, and a deck overlooking a small pond. It was listed for $640,000, which seemed like an enormous amount of money, until Karen explained that similar houses in comparable developments were selling for $700,000 or more. Karen said the builders were motivated to sell because they had construction loans to pay off and winter was approaching. She suggested we make an offer quickly before other buyers discovered this underpriced gem in a market where good houses were selling within days of being listed. Sandra and I talked about it for 2 weeks. The house was undeniably beautiful, far nicer than anything we'd ever imagined living in. Our current house felt cramped and outdated after touring the spacious rooms and modern amenities in Willowbrook Estates. But more than the house itself, we were attracted to Karen's argument that real estate was the safest and most reliable investment available to people like us. She showed us charts demonstrating that housing prices had increased steadily for decades, and that people who bought quality homes in desirable neighborhoods always built wealth over time. We made an offer of $620,000 in April 2008, and the builders accepted immediately. Looking back, I should have been suspicious about how quickly they agreed to a price that was $20,000 below their asking price. But at the time, I thought we'd gotten a great deal on a house that would be worth much more within a few years. The mortgage process was surprisingly complicated. Our income from my pension and Sandra's part-time job wasn't quite high enough to qualify for a conventional loan at that price point, so Karen referred us to a mortgage broker who specialized in creative financing solutions for mature borrowers. The broker, a man named Todd, who worked out of a strip mall office, offered us something called an interest-only adjustable rate mortgage that would keep our payments manageable for the first 5 years while the house appreciated in value. After that, we could refinance based on our increased equity and lock in a lower long-term rate. Todd explained that this type of loan was perfect for borrowers like us who had significant assets but limited current income. We'd pay only the interest for 5 years, about $2,800 monthly, then switch to a traditional mortgage or sell the house and downsize to something smaller with our accumulated profits. The loan documents were overwhelming. Hundreds of pages of legal language that Todd assured us was standard boilerplate for this type of mortgage. He highlighted the important sections: our monthly payment, the 5-year adjustment period, and the procedures for refinancing when the time came. We signed the papers in May 2008 and moved into our dream house in June. For the first few months, we felt like we'd made the smartest financial decision of our lives. The house was everything we'd hoped: spacious, comfortable, and impressive when our adult children and their families came to visit. But by the end of 2008, it was becoming clear that the housing market was in serious trouble. Houses in our old neighborhood were sitting unsold for months at prices well below what we'd received for ours. New construction in developments like Willowbrook Estates had stopped completely, and several homes in our neighborhood had price reductions posted on their for sale signs. The broader economic crisis was affecting everyone, but real estate was hit particularly hard. By 2009, houses similar to ours were selling for under $500,000. By 2010, comparable properties were going for $400,000 or less. Our $640,000 dream house was worth maybe $350,000, leaving us underwater by nearly $300,000. The real crisis came in 2013 when our 5-year interest-only period ended and our mortgage payment jumped to over $4,000 monthly. Todd's promises about refinancing based on increased equity turned out to be fantasy. No bank would refinance a loan for twice what the house was worth, and our fixed incomes hadn't increased enough to qualify for payments at that level. We tried to sell the house, But even at $300,000, less than half what we'd paid, there were no buyers. We tried to negotiate a short sale with the bank, but the process was complicated and humiliating, requiring us to prove financial hardship while demonstrating that we'd made good faith efforts to maintain our payments. Sandra went back to work full-time at 68, taking a retail job that paid $12 an hour just to help cover the mortgage payments. I picked up part-time work doing bookkeeping for small businesses, earning maybe $800 monthly while dealing with health problems that made full-time employment impossible. For 3 years, we scraped together mortgage payments that consumed nearly 80% of our combined income. We stopped traveling, stopped eating out, stopped buying anything that wasn't absolutely necessary. Our dream house became a beautiful prison that we couldn't afford to keep and couldn't afford to leave. In 2016, Sandra had a heart attack that required bypass surgery and months of recovery. The medical bills and her inability to work made it impossible to continue making mortgage payments, and we fell behind for the first time since buying the house. The bank offered us a loan modification that reduced our payment to $3,200 monthly, which was still more than we could afford on my limited income and Sandra's disability payments. We accepted the modification because the alternative was immediate foreclosure, but it only postponed the inevitable. For the past 8 years, we've been living month to month, never quite able to catch up on our payments, but never far enough behind to trigger foreclosure proceedings. The stress has been enormous, constantly worrying about money, feeling trapped in a house we can't afford, watching our savings disappear and our credit rating collapse. Sandra's health never fully recovered from the heart attack and the stress of our financial situation. She developed anxiety and depression that required medication and therapy we could barely afford. I developed high blood pressure and insomnia that my doctor directly attributed to chronic financial stress. The foreclosure notice that arrived this week was not a surprise. We've been expecting it for months as our missed payments accumulated. We have 60 days to vacate the house that destroyed our financial security and consumed the last 16 years of our lives. At 76 and 74, Sandra and I are starting over with no assets, damaged credit, and limited options for housing we can actually afford. Our adult children are helping as much as they can, but they have their own families and financial obligations. We're moving into a 2-bedroom apartment that costs $1,400 monthly, exactly half what we were paying for our starter home mortgage back in 1981. The apartment is smaller than our first house, but it's clean and safe, and most importantly, we can afford it without destroying our health and sanity. Here's what I learned from the biggest financial mistake of my life. There's no such thing as a housing market that only goes up. Real estate can lose value just as dramatically as it can gain value. And when you're leveraged with borrowed money, those losses can be catastrophic. We bought at the peak because everyone, real estate agents, mortgage brokers, financial advisors, neighbors, was telling us that housing prices would continue rising indefinitely. The idea that our $640,000 house could lose half its value seemed impossible in 2008. But markets don't care about what seems possible. They respond to supply and demand, economic conditions, and forces that individual homeowners can't control or predict. When we bought our dream house, we weren't just buying a place to live. We were making a massive leveraged bet on the future of the housing market. The interest-only loan that seemed so attractive turned into a trap when housing prices fell and refinancing became impossible. What looked like financial innovation was really just a way for lenders to qualify borrowers for larger loans than they could actually afford when the payments adjusted to include principal. We lost our dream house, but we learned some expensive lessons about the difference between a home and an investment. A home is a place where you live, build memories, and find security. An investment is a financial gamble that can go wrong, and when your home is also your investment, you risk losing both your money and your security. If you're considering buying a house at current market prices, or if you're thinking about using your home equity to upgrade to something more expensive, please learn from our mistake. Don't assume that real estate always appreciates. Don't take on debt you can't afford based on projections about future home values. And don't let anyone convince you that you need to act quickly before you miss out on a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The best housing decision is usually the one you can afford comfortably, not the one that maximizes your potential investment returns. We had a perfectly good house that was paid off and suitable for our needs. We gave that up chasing bigger profits and ended up losing everything. At 76, I'm learning to be grateful for a 2-bedroom apartment I can afford, instead of bitter about the dream house that destroyed our finances. It's a hard lesson to learn this late in life, but maybe our story can help others avoid making the same mistake. If this story makes you think about your own housing decisions, share it with someone who might benefit from hearing about the real risks of buying more house than you can afford. And tell me in the comments, what's the difference between a home and an investment in your mind? Sometimes the most important financial decisions are the ones where you choose security over potential profits.